Welcome to your Directors Club of America podcast and backstage pass to the biggest names in the game, the power players. I'm Jennifer Gelhaus, your co-host along Kyla Kwa. Today, we invite you to listen to a conversation with Martin Blackman, founder and CEO of Athena Sports and former general manager at USTA Player Development. Enjoy this episode and make sure to subscribe. And if you want to keep the conversation going, we invite you to follow us on LinkedIn. Comment on our post and let us know what you think. Remember, no filter needed. Enjoy. Welcome to Power Players. Today we welcome Martin Blackman. He's the founder and CEO of Athena Sports and until recently, the general manager at USTA Player Development. Welcome, Martin.
Jennifer, thanks for having me. Great to be with both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, we love having you. And we always start with Kyle's burning questions. So Kyle likes to shoot right to the core with the very first question. So go ahead, Kyle.
Sure. Good morning, Martin. Great to have you on. So obviously your resume is impressive. You were a player, you were a coach, you're a manager, you're an executive. In all those roles, everyone that was around you always looked at you as a leader. And I think that's important. Every phase of your career, you've always been looked at as that leader. What was the toughest transition for you to make? Was it from player to coach to manager to executive? Take me through that process.
Yeah, great question, Kyle. Great question. They were all different, but I think the one that was the most impactful was coming off of the tour. I was on the tour for 7 years, 19 to about 26, 27. So coming off the tour, obviously I had to finish my degree, but I really wanted to get away from tennis. And I think a lot of former players feel this way. You pour your heart into it and it's your dream. And I loved every minute of that 7 years, but I didn't get to where I wanted to get to. And so you have a little bit of a conflicted relationship with the sports. I wanted to get away. I had an opportunity to get my MBA paid for at American University. So I would get tuition remission for being the assistant coach. And a month before the season started, the head coach quit. So they were stuck with me. And I needed the pay raise big time. I took that role and I just fell in love with it, as head coach there. Just a different relationship. It's not about me. It's not about taking. It's about giving and mentoring those young men and helping to challenge them and push them to really maximize their potential. I just love that. So that was a big turning point for me, reconnecting with the sport in a different way. And then I think the next biggest one was really going from kind of manager to executive. It was a big jump to come into the role of GM. Patrick had done a great job, laid a great foundation. Jose Higueras was still there, thankfully, but it was a big responsibility and I really took it seriously. So one of the things I did at the beginning of that role that I think helped me was I said to myself, look, this is the first time you've been a kind of a chief executive of a big team. You need some people around you who can advise you, who have done it before and have the experience. So I reached out to a group of friends, 5 or 6 men and women who had been very successful in business, finance, what have you. And I asked them to be a little bit of an advisory council for me and help me really get the first couple years right. And I think that really helped at the beginning, is to have the benefit of the experience of people who had been there, done it before, especially the strategic guidance. Because I think when you come into a role like that, there's a tendency to really want to do everything really fast and you get a little bit too tactical. But what you really want to do is listen and learn for a while before you really make any decisions. So that was really beneficial.
Yeah, you've been working with great players and identifying talent. How do you identify talent in coaches? What are some things that you look at that make you go, this is a great coach?
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
That's why you guys are so good, because the questions, that they're coming from that DNA. I love it. Couple things with coaches. So I think we all know there is a bias towards coaches that have played at a high level. And you get a little bit of an advantage and acceleration in your career if you played at a high level. And I definitely benefited from that. I wouldn't try to mischaracterize that. But I think really the key with great coaches at any level is, number one, they've got to have a passion for teaching. You got to have a passion for teaching. You got to have a passion for seeing people get better. And obviously, typically I'm on the court with high performance juniors, collegians, and pros and stuff. But I love being on the court with beginners. I love being on the court with adults that are intermediate. As long as they want to learn and get better, I love it. So I think number one, coaches that really have a desire to teach. I'd say number two, coaches that are students of the game. So they really try to understand and create a knowledge base as opposed to just taking what their coach taught them and just recycling it. I think that's really important. I would say number three, a growth mindset. As coaches, we all have weaknesses, we all have blind spots, and you've got to be willing to really get better in those areas. And you got to be willing to be vulnerable with the players you're coaching as well. You don't know everything. So don't act like you know everything, right? And the most effective coaches are coaches that ask questions when they're on the court instead of just giving the information. And then I would say the last thing is work ethic. You got to be able to grind. If you can't put the hours in, it's just not going to work. Now, later on down the road, after you have put the work in and paid your dues, then there's so many different avenues that open up. And that's really cool too. So yeah, those are the things that we look for. I really tried, or I've in my career, I've tried to stay away from that bias, try to minimize that bias that a good coach has to have been a great player. In some cases, it really helps. When I was with player development, that 10 years, a lot of our great coaches had been really good players, but a lot of them had not been. And I think that mix is really important. When you have a team of coaches, that mix of perspectives, because typically what happens is the coaches who weren't great players go to school and they compensate for it by just learning and like crazy, learning and getting mentored and becoming students and watching video. And in many cases they will surpass those coaches who are great players. So those are some of the things that we look for and trying to create pathways of learning so that coaches can pursue, whether it's 10 and under, whether it's junior development, whether it's high performance, whether it's collegiate, whether it's adult, whether it's wheelchair, really trying to remove any barriers that are in those coaches' pathways was one thing we tried to do.
And what about managing the coaches? How was that experience for you? Because you're dealing with different personalities, egos, all the things. So how was that?
Yep. Coaches have egos. Coaches have egos.
No.
Come on, really?
We don't, right? I know the three of us
No.
don't. But it was very fun. It was very challenging, and it really kept me on my toes. So some of the things that I really kept in mind when I was managing our coaches was one is you have to have the humility to understand and empower them to make decisions on the ground that they're closest to and they have the most knowledge about. So I really approached it with humility and so much respect for the knowledge of our coaches who are amazing. Number two, you have to have kind of strategic anchors on how you make decisions because 90% of the time, 95% of the time, the way I managed is if a coach or a manager or a leader came to me, 95% of the time I would agree with them and say, yeah, let's do it. How can I help you? 5% of the time, it was a situation where I had more visibility and there were some strategic factors involved, and I had to say, no, we're not going to do it. And then you have to be able to explain it in a really respectful way, but be super firm. And that was the way it went. And I think our coaches and our team appreciated the fact that I really tried to flatten our organization. People didn't have to run decisions up the flagpole to me. They knew that they had the autonomy to make decisions and to make mistakes. I think high performing organizations have a default bias to action. And if you do, then you make a lot of small mistakes because you're really driven, but then you don't make any big ones. So that was the culture we tried to cultivate.
That's where you learn, right? Is in the mistakes.
100%. And the same thing goes for the players that we coach. You know, you got to let them make mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So talking about coaches, Martin, I know this is a conversation that Jennifer and I have offline all the time. Our industry is like 22% female coaches.
Yeah.
I personally would love to see more. I know Jen would. I know it's a tough industry, but I guess my question that I'm getting at is, how do you see female coaches fitting into the industry? How can we get more of the female coaches? Because personally, from my opinion, I take it more as a sort of genetic predisposition, right? Males are more interested in things, tools and sticks and rocks and cars and this and that, whereas females are more interested in communication, empathy.
Cool.
So I
Yeah.
feel like females, because when I worked at my club in Boca, I had 5 females on staff, and they absolutely crushed it. And it was like heads and shoulders above the rest. And so I've always been a big proponent of females, but just from your perspective, how can we get more females into this industry?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Kyle. So we need more women coaching. That's just the bottom line. But they're all, as you said, there are cultural and societal pathways that are more sticky for men. My, the two things that I tried to do, it was a big priority for me and our national coaching staff. We had some amazing national coaches, Kathy Rinaldi, who's now the head of women's tennis, Jamea Jackson, Lori Riffis, and many others. So one of the things that I saw was in certain periods of life, we have to make it easier for women to be coaches. So one thing we did, and I think, look, I think the bottom line is the industry has to be more creative. We've got to be more creative and less rigid. So one of the things we did is we created a job share. So we have a job, 52 weeks. We said, why don't we try to find 2 amazing women that are coaches to fill this one job? They needed the flexibility of that time for different reasons. And we got 2 amazing coaches into one position. Number 2 is we've got to combat the biases that women can't teach high performance and junior development. I call it anti-stereotypes. The best coach that my son ever had was a woman, one of our national coaches before she became a national coach. And before that, I actually had to look myself in the mirror and realize that I had unconscious biases because I never thought about a woman coaching my son. My son was a good junior player, and I was looking around, and I'm like, Martin, why? How come you're not thinking of? I won't say the person's name, but the woman, she's a great coach, and then boom. So I think finding ways to be more creative to create more flexibility in the workplace. I think number one. I think number 2, we have to be proactive, and number 3, I think we have to do more research. One of the things that I did about 4 years ago, because coach development came into player development, it merged with us for a couple of years. So when it merged with us, I said, okay, great opportunity to tackle this. So we did a research study, a comprehensive research study with a group called the Tucker Center that focuses on research on girls and women in sports. And that comprehensive study gave us so many different kind of insights into how we could create a better pathway. So I think we got to be more creative, and that starts with leadership. Obviously, we got to have allies like you. 3, we got to get over these stereotypes. And 4, we got to create more flexibility in the workplace. And I think if we do that and we're really intentional, we can move it forward.
I think you're spot on. I like
And
how
Jennifer, I'd love to know what you think. What do you think about that?
I completely agree with you. I don't know if I agree with, that all women are more caring and more this and that. I think everyone has the potential of being caring and being a good coach. I don't think it matters in that sense. Maybe women have a more innate ability
Yes.
to connect on a deeper level just because we've been raised to be talkers. We like to talk, that's for sure, and we like to get deep in conversations. I think we do have that innate ability, but yeah, I think everyone has the potential to be a good coach, but I do think that missing out on female talent on the coaching side is definitely hurting the industry.
Definitely hurting the industry. And I think
Yeah,
no stereotypes, everything, but nurture, nature, all
yeah.
that good stuff being equal. But there's definitely bias. We got to
Oh,
be
for
honest
sure.
about that. We got to be honest about it. And I think, but we also have to be intentional. So there's bias. So we have to challenge. We got to challenge the industry, the directors of tennis, the GMs, and we need to also identify best practices because I'm sure there's 10, 20% of clubs and pockets and cultures around the country that are doing a really good job in this area. we need to learn from them.
Oh, for sure. Even for me, I've been a head coach in college, a director. I've had leadership positions, right? And people come in and they don't know who I am. And they ask me, "Oh, where's the head coach? Where's it?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's me." And people are always surprised because I've always looked younger than I am. So people always think I'm a player.
Got it. Got
Like,
it.
oh, I wasn't expecting you to be that. But so there's definitely bias there. I definitely sense that for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and one more thing, Jennifer, is I also think as we tackle those structural issues and those challenges around bias, is also facilitating more mentorship of coach leaders like yourself, of young women coming into the industry. I think that would be really powerful too.
Yeah, just even in general,
Yeah,
for all the coaches. Yeah.
that's right.
So when you were at USA Player Development, what were some of the bigger challenges that you faced?
I'll go big picture, right? I'll go big picture. So there were so many things going well when I came into the role because my predecessor Patrick McEnroe had done a great job. Jose Higueras had done a phenomenal job with our coaching philosophy. But I still felt we needed to be more systematic and objective in our decision making.
Mm,
So we did some research to find benchmarks, and then we aligned some of our selection criteria against those benchmarks, and we really became very objective in our decision making. We left we left about 20% of flexibility, which we gave back to local coaches in the section to help us identify kids who didn't have the rankings that would flag the objective markers, but kids who couldn't afford private lessons, kids who were late maturers, and kids who were multi-sport athletes. So we tried to create a framework where it was 80-20 in all of our selection and decision making. So 80%, boom, objective. We're not going to play favorites. It doesn't matter that you like the way he hits his forehand or you like something. But that 20%, we're going to get that intel from the ground because we don't want to deselect kids at a young age just because they're not able to afford to get those lessons or afford to travel to play the tournaments or because they're playing another sport or because they haven't had that growth spurt yet. And that worked really well. That balance was very important. The other thing in terms of objectivity is you guys know how wild cards can be such an emotional issue, right? Such a divisive thing. You didn't get the wild card. Why did she get the wild card? So what we did is we created a linkage system of objective merit-based wild cards so that Jennifer, when you win the tournament next week, you immediately are going to get a wild card into a tournament that's a level up
mm.
instead of us making subjective decisions about 8 young women and not really having a framework to make a good one. So we did that. We were really underinvested in college tennis. So I aligned 3 coaches against the college tennis space, one on the women's side, one on the men's side, and one director who was Stephen Armitage. That was big. That was a very important calibration to where we could stay connected with those players when they're in college, but still respect the role of the head coach and not step on the head coach's toes. And then that helped us to guide those players, put a good pro schedule together in the fall and the summer. And I think what you've seen now with 3x more American players in the top 100 coming through college than we had 15 years ago is a big part of that. And I would say the last part of it was a culture of learning, a beginner's mindset of our team always wanting to identify areas of opportunity where we could get better, always admitting where we could get better. That was a really big part of the culture that we tried to cultivate. Raise your hand. Hey guys, I made a mistake yesterday. Here's what I learned. Not like I made a mistake yesterday. I hope nobody finds out. And that we had a lot of those lunch and learns, time on the court, and we put together a professional development program whereby everyone on the team had a developmental plan the same way our players do. What are your areas of focus for development this year? And what are your areas of strength where you want to be given opportunities to present and lead? And so those are some of the things that we did that I'm really proud of. And a lot of our great ideas came from the team. They didn't all come from me. They came from the team, and we held each other accountable. the lady or the young man at the front desk when you walk in, the lowest young person on the org chart had the same ability to hold me accountable as everybody else on the team because we knew what our values were. Yeah, I think those are some of the things that helped us. Yeah.
So my question is, where does that attitude and ethos come from? It's not like you just woke up one day as the general manager of USTA player development and you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Where does that come from? What's the background? Did you grow up with parents that were pushing you towards that? Because it's a very refreshing take on what I think, too, a lot of people from the outside of USTA don't think of, right? They're like, oh, they have these preconceived notions, but you have a very fresh take on leadership and on leading not only a team of coaches, but also a team of players. So what's your background there? That has to come from somewhere deep.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kyle. And anything solid and foundational comes from my parents
Mm-hmm.
and my faith. So that's the foundation of my life. But I think three areas that I learned about leadership. One is I'm very fortunate that I had great role models who really taught me, or what I think taught me how to be a man in a healthy way. I think back to my junior Davis Cup coach, Coach Patton, Greg Patton. I was on that team for 2 summers. He would talk to us about life. He would talk to us about character. He would cry sometimes. He would tell us he loved us. And we just knew deep down that he cared way more about us as people than tennis players. And I'd never seen that before. I've been in I've been in environments where it's like you lose, you run 5 miles. You're going to Outback or you're gonna Taco Bell. That was a game changer for me. Same thing with Coach Gould at Stanford. I was able to really watch how he went about his business and learned so much from him, looked up to him as a mentor. And then I've always been a big reader. And one of the books that I read before taking the job was a book called Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal. And he was the leader of the joint special forces in Afghanistan and Iraq about 25 years ago, and great leader. And he talked about the changes that he had to make in the military, particularly the special forces, in order to address the enemy, to be able to deal with the enemy. And for him, it was all about flattening the hierarchy in the military, empowering his soldiers and his teams to make decisions in real time because they're facing an enemy that's moving and nimble. And then the second thing that I got out of that book was the fact that you can't lead effectively unless you're willing to lead from behind and in front. And there were times when my job was just to block and tackle for my team and just take hits and make sure that they could focus. And if there was a mistake made, it's okay, I made the mistake. If there's something that needs to be dealt with that's going to take a lot of time from what we're doing, I'll deal with it. So those are some of the insights that I got from that book. But so much of it has come from role models. I've been just so fortunate. I learned so much from Jose Higueras, kind of watching him go about his business. A guy who's given 33 years to American tennis and one of the most humble human beings you'll ever meet. And that combination of humility and mastery of coaching is why we were able to spread the philosophy through the country. That's why it was accepted. But the other reason it was accepted is because we had the humility to correct it over and over again. When coaches said, hey, that's missing, you should have that, or you forgot about that. And I just think that when you have a conviction about what you know, and then you have humility about what you don't know, I think it's easy to move forward.
I think that's our clip there, Kyle.
That's
I could talk to you guys for hours. You guys are great, man.
That was fantastic.
We could have a whole podcast just on Coach Patton alone because
what a guy.
He's phenomenal. So it's funny you mentioned about growing up in that environment and how you've seen the other side of things, and you've been, if you lose the match, you do this. I've always wanted to ask you this, and I never thought I would get the chance until this morning. I have a picture here. I think it's one of the most iconic, famous pictures in tennis. I think you know where I'm going with this. I'm going to hold up a picture, and I want you to tell me where you were at this moment personally, as a young leader? Here's a picture of you with Agassi, Nick Bollettieri, Jim Curry, and David Wheaton. Now, there's a lot of ego in this picture. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on in this picture. Again, that's a whole nother podcast. But based on this picture, who were you as a person at this time? Where were you? Just tell me about the young Martin Blackman.
Yeah, so I think I was 16 in that picture. So I'm going to say it was 1986. And if that's the case, and just looking at how Andre and Jim looked, the length of Jim mullet, I could do the math. So just I'm thinking 1986. So that was a good year for me. I won Kalamazoo. I qualified for the U.S. Pro Indoors as a 16-year-old, got my first ATP points. Those guys were obviously crushing it as well. I think probably when I look at that picture, I also see all the comment. The first thing is I say, hey, what happened to that guy on the left? But what I see also, though, is someone who's probably still thinking college. That was my dream, really. Stanford, John McEnroe, the whole deal. And really those other three guys thinking, no, I'm going straight after it. And I'm glad they did. And I'm still friends with all three of those guys. And I really care for them and respect them. I've been able to reconnect with Andre recently, which is really cool. Jim was an amazing Davis Cup captain and always gave back to our players whenever we asked him. But I'm so proud of those three guys. But I'm really glad that I went the other way, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you and Jennifer, and I wouldn't have my beautiful wife and 4 lovely children if I didn't. But those were good times. There were challenging times, there were conflicted times. Nick was so generous, but Nick was a little crazy. You know the deal. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I want to know about what you're doing now with Athena Sports. Tell us about what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's been really fun and to build something and go into massive learning mode. So towards around September, October last year, when I knew I was going to be leaving the USTA, I started reaching out to some of the people that had been on that initial advisory council that had helped me strategically. And I said, hey, I'm going to be moving out and doing something different. And they were like, let us know how we can help you. So I got a lot of great advice during Q4 of last year. And then things started to evolve. People would come to me with different projects. And I really have identified 3 paths. So number one is my heart, my passion, my energy comes from tennis. I never want to stop coaching. I never want to stop coaching education. I love being on the court with young people. So I'll continue to do that. That's about a third of what I'm doing, a blend of high performance coaching and coach development. Then it's about a third of advising on racket sports centers. It's really cool to see this proliferation of mixed real estate development and racket sports centers in the middle. So there are a couple of cool projects that I'm advising on: the design of the center, the programming mix, event sourcing, commercial partnerships. And then the third stream of work is venture advising, startups that play at the intersection of racket sports, performance, tech, and health. So that's been great. And I'm toggling back and forth between those 3 streams. I got a small but mighty team, but I've got a really amazing advisor network that's really stepped up. So I'm really looking forward to this chapter. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. And I'm just curious, what's your favorite facility? I'm guessing you've seen lots of amazing racket facilities. And you don't have to say the USCA National campus.
Yeah, look, I love the USCA National campus, but recently I was down at the Breakers because Andre and Steffi were doing an exo to open up a new grass court stadium that they unveiled 2 months ago. And that facility is just beautiful. And there are a bunch of them. The Vintage Club in Palm Desert.
Oh, yeah.
Is stunning. But that's the great thing about our sport. Like, whether it's clubs like that just blow you away with their beauty and elegance, or whether it's just like a little park in a little garden somewhere where there's an NJTL program happening. I think part of it too is what's happening on that court that makes it beautiful. I'm going to SF next week, and there's a NJTL program there called YPA, and they have 7 sites throughout San Francisco. Most of them are these courts nestled in these little parks and that serve underserved kids for tennis and education. And those are some of the most beautiful courts I've ever seen too.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle?
Oh boy, wow. I've been pretty blessed to be all over the world and to see a lot of different things and a lot of different courts. I think down in Miami, I'm pretty spoiled. There's also just some amazing places in Europe all over. I think every facility is completely unique unto itself. And so there's a culture, there's a vibe, there's an energy
Yeah.
about it that is just really special. Every place you go is a little bit uniquely different. And that's what makes it so great, is just that culture. I remember as a junior growing up in Tampa, every Tuesday night I would go to this public park, and I was a pretty competitive junior, but I just loved tennis so much. And every Tuesday night, I had this doubles match with a 47-year-old artist, a 57-year-old social worker, and an 84-year-old retired guy from Suriname.
That's so cool. I
And
love it,
and
man.
it
I
was
love it.
and I just kept playing, and it was just different styles. And we would do a round robin. We'd all play with each other, and and I couldn't get enough of it. And then after
Yep.
2 hours with them, I'd go and I'd hit against the wall. But it was just that culture and growing up and just having a love for the sport and realizing it doesn't matter backgrounds, it doesn't matter cultures.
That's right.
It,
That's
it,
right. It brings us
it's a
together.
special
It
it's a
brings us
special
together. Yeah.
special sport. Absolutely. And talking about bringing us together, I wanted to talk about. I know you've been incredibly helpful as not only a supporter but as a guide towards inclusive and adaptive tennis. My wife,
Sure.
Lisa Pugliese-Lacroix, runs Love Serving Autism, and I know
What
you've
a
been
great
extremely.
program, Kyle.
Thank,
That's an
thank you,
amazing program.
thank
Yeah.
you. I know you've been very instrumental in that and a big advocate. So, can you tell us more about what for the future for maybe not only USTA but also for Athena Sports Advisory Group, what you're looking to do in the adaptive inclusive space?
Yeah. Thank you. So 5 years ago, high performance wheelchair merged with player development. And that was when I started to get educated. The person leading that function was Jason Harnett. He's still leading that function, does a phenomenal job, both in high performance and community. And he just schooled me. I admitted to him, I'm like, I've always been a fan of wheelchair tennis. I respect the athletes. I can tell how demanding it is, but I don't know much about it. So that first year was just really an education for me and our team. And we started inviting more of our top wheelchair players in. And halfway through that year, I made a commitment to him. I said, my goal for this kind of integration is that every single function that we have that supports able-bodied high performance tennis will be available to wheelchair tennis, and that the walls will just fall away. So whether it's strength and conditioning, performance analytics, athletic medicine, you name it, all of those performance team expertise buckets that we benefit from our ecosystem are going to be there for our wheelchair players as well. So that was number one. And then number two, we started looking at the other two pathways. That's the developmental piece, but we looked at the competitive pathway and the educational pathway. And we said, okay, how are we doing there? How can we integrate wheelchair tennis into our competitive pathway so we don't have all these siloed standalone events? If you're going to have a 14s nationals, why don't you have a 16 draw for wheelchair? So that we tackled that, and Jason did a really good job. We started integrating with some nationals, with some ITF events, with Kalamazoo. Phenomenal job there. You saw the event at the Miami Open. That kind of door has opened, and I think it's going to continue to proliferate. And then the third one was education. How are we doing with coaching education in the wheelchair pathway? From the time when that young girl or that young boy realizes that they can play this sport in a wheelchair, to the time when they start learning the game, to the time when they start competing, to the time when you have a Dana Matheson who's representing us at the highest level. And so we really went after integrating wheelchair tennis into our educational pathway. And it was such a blessing to have wheelchair tennis integrated with us, to meet those amazing players, the juniors, get the junior event added to the US Open. So from an Athena perspective, one of the things I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to look for opportunities to connect kind of groups, organizations that are looking to elevate adaptive sports and just see if I can be a connector. I'm not wearing my USTA hat anymore, but there are opportunities out there. I'll give you one example. There's an amazing foundation in Alabama called the Lakeshore Foundation that has an entire campus and a support structure for adaptive Paralympic athletes where they can come and get everything they need regardless of sport. I'd love to connect them with the university ecosystem so that university athletes and young people who have maybe just been injured or just experiencing the effects of some type of congenital situation, that they know that there's a place they can go and pursue their dreams. The same way players come to the USTA National Campus, the same way they go to an academy. I think Lakeshore could be that kind of place for Paralympic juniors and collegians. So those just trying to really connect those dots, Kyle. But I'm not going to kind of walk away from that commitment because it's a big part of keeping our sport healthy.
Yeah.
And I think one more thing, Kyle, I'll say is that as I'm starting to learn more about these racket sports centers and a little bit more about design and accessibility, I'm challenging myself and the architects and the industry. Let's not stop at ADA requirements. Let's design facilities and venues that are welcoming and inviting, that go the extra step with their design so that folks that are in wheelchairs or a little mobility challenged really look around and see that, oh my gosh, they really want me here. They really make it easy for me here. So those are when you can attack things like that to make things better for our brothers and sisters out there, it's always good.
Yeah, I've always gone by the term go to a place where you're celebrated, not tolerated.
Exactly. I love that.
Do you have any specific projects that you're working on now that you want to share with us?
I should have asked the project leads what I could talk about, but I don't want to. Sometimes people are a little bit sensitive, but what I will say is that the two projects and the two startup companies, let's go with the startup companies that I'm helping, is it's exciting to see kind of technology meeting coaching and all the different possibilities that there are. To me, the most exciting possibilities is when barriers are removed. So anything that makes tennis more accessible, anything that makes a instructional experience $25 instead of $100, anything that gets right, anything that makes it easy for kids to
US
get.
Open, hello. Why is the US Open so darn expensive now? You can't even bring a kid there. A water is $20. Like you can't bring water. Like a ticket is crazy up there. What's up with that?
We've got to look for ways to make it accessible. Got to look for ways. That's why I'm such a big proponent and supporter of the USTA Foundation that runs a network of 150 programs for inner city kids, tennis and education. That those are the kind of programs that we need to really invest in. And the other thing, Jennifer, to your point about accessibility, we got to bring pro tournaments back to the US. We've lost so many WTA and ATP tournaments, and that's where kids like me and you and Kyle go and watch something for the first time with wide eyes, and you're like, oh my gosh, that could be me.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are all things that I feel really strongly about and want to be a part of making it better. Yeah.
It's the truth. I can remember my first professional tennis I ever saw was the Davis Cup. It was US versus France in St. Petersburg at the Bayfront Center. And it was Jim Courier and Todd Martin, and France had Cedric Pioline and Guy Forget. And
Oh boy, yeah, that's heavy.
it was the most incredible athleticism I've ever seen. Since to this day, I've always been a big fan of Cedric Pioline
Yeah, man, he was clean. He was clean.
He was so smooth. But it was one of those moments where you're in the stands, you hear the national anthem playing, you see these incredible athletes, and you get the sense of it. And I was probably 13, 14 at the time, and I'm like,
It's so inspiring. It's
I
so
am
inspiring.
I am totally doing this for a living.
Yes.
And I
And
was
here's the thing,
I
right?
was
Here's the
hooked.
thing. With all those millions of kids that get inspired by those WTA, ATP events, the dream being number one, playing at Wimbledon, the Open, it doesn't have to be the dream, but they stay in our sport, right? They play juniors, they play college, they become
Yes.
coaches. They're me and you. And that's what keeps it healthy is you got to have that energy and you got to have that visual, that aspirational goal. Jennifer, what was your first memory of a pro tennis that really inspired you?
I'm not from here. I grew up in Venezuela. That's where I'm from. I
Okay.
came here for college when I was 16, but I grew up in Venezuela and I actually didn't start playing tennis till I was 11.
Love it. I
So I
love
started
it.
playing tennis at 11 and at 16 I was starting college. So I had a very short junior career,
Okay.
but I did get to see Davis Cup played in Venezuela. And
Beautiful.
that was
So
my,
Maurice Rua.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
my time.
Yeah, I loved it. It was my favorite thing ever. Just getting to see that level of tennis
Yeah.
and see it. It was incredible. And then once I
Yeah.
was here in the States, and I got to go to tournaments back in Indianapolis when they had their tournament there.
Yeah. The RCA. That's
Yep.
The
right.
RCA,
Yeah.
which then they got rid of, but and then Western Southern Open, Miami Open, US Open. So went to the French Open. I love it. If I could get paid to just go watch tennis, be like, sign me up.
But look at the enthusiasm. We're all a little bit older. I'm older than both of you probably, but the enthusiasm and the passion is still there. Here's another connector. You mentioned you're from Venezuela. I'm glad you told me that. My first inspiring event, the thing that just got me so fired up, there was a world 10 and 12 and under tournament in Caracas called El Mundialito,
Mm.
and it was played at the Altamira Tennis Club in
Mhm.
Caracas. And kids from all over the world would come and play. The years I played, Mary Jo Fernandez won 1 year, Gabriela Sabatini won 1 year, Nicolas Pereira won 1 year, and I won 1 year. And I'm still friends with half of the kids that played that tournament.
Yeah.
That's 45 years ago. So it's those kind of connections with the sport and with cultures and with travel. And then the background stuff falls away. All that stuff falls away because we're connected by our love of the sport. And then the respect that you have for the people you compete against.
Are they from Venezuela, your friends?
Yeah, yeah. But Maurice and Nicolas are still good friends, Maurice Rua and Nicolas Pereira.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are from different countries. Israel came. I've been friends with Gilad Bloom forever. I just reconnected with a girl that played the 10 and unders from Colombia. Yeah, all over the world.
That's the
Yeah,
great thing about tennis. It's international and we all speak the same language
that's
and
right.
Yep.
love the sport. So,
So, Jennifer, you're in Boca also?
no, I'm in Tampa.
You're in Tampa, right? Okay.
I'm in
Council
Tampa,
Boca.
about to head up to the Cape. Yeah.
Excellent. So much fun, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
It-
so much, Martin, for your time. We appreciate you.
You
This is
got it. And
wonderful.
let's stay connected. Are you guys going to the Open this year?
I hope to go, but it's always tough for me being on the Cape.
Yeah, being on
Maybe
the
in
yeah, yeah.
September I could. I just have to figure out how to get there. It's still a good 4 hours.
Let's stay connected. We're going to be on Martha's Vineyard for a week. We have some friends who are really generous. They let us use their house for a week. So we're not too far. How far is
Oh,
that from?
I was on the vineyard for 4 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I was the director at East Chop Tennis Club, which is in Oak Bluffs.
Yeah.
And then my 2023, I was at the Boathouse and Field Club, which is in Edgartown.
Got it. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I love the vineyard. The only thing is I got a little bit tired of being stuck on an island and we only have like one grocery store.
Right.
Now I'm on the
Yeah,
Cape. It's a little bit better, but I do miss the island. I love Martha's Vineyard. It's a
yeah.
great spot.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Oh, I'm going to stay connected with both of you
Yes,
guys. I
please.
really appreciate it. Yeah.
Please, Martin, thank you so much for your. I'd be remiss if I didn't. My wife says hello, and you are the most important part of our family. I hear your name more in our household than I actually do my own. It's like Lisa, Martin, my two dogs, Duke and Daisy, and then Kyle's down here. It's like, oh, how's Martin doing? How's this? How's that? What's he up to? Please tell him I said hi all the
Give
time.
her,
Martin,
please.
yeah. Thank you.
Give her my best, Kyle, and tell her that she's my role model.
Oh,
So thanks for inspiring coaches like me.
thank you so much, Martin. Next time you're in Boca, let's get together.
Definitely. Take care, guys.